Was reading a magazine the other day. I play a little bit of golf. I play a little bit of golf. I've been trying to go out and practice so I could go play a little golf. I haven't played in so many years that it's almost a lost dream of mine now. But anyway, I've been reading this golf magazine, and I'd like to share with you my experience as I read this article that was in there. The article was called Wide Open Thinking. And as I read it, I thought, wow. It reminded me of our relationship with God and what He asks us to do. And so bear with me today as I share with you my inspiration as I read this. It brought back a lot of things to my own mind that I'll share with you. You see, in the world of sports like golf or baseball or any other type of activity in sporting field, the words that you often hear is stay focused. Stay focused, focus on what you're supposed to do. You're a lineman in a football team, you got to stay focused on the guy across from you that you got to move him one way or the other. Everything we talk about in the sports world is focus on your attempt to do something. But what is involved with staying focused? Studies have shown that being focused doesn't always yield the best results. That's interesting. They tell you, all the coaches and all your training tells you to stay focused, but science has proven that staying focused not necessarily the right thing. Consider this yourselves. When you were in school, and you young people pay special attention, when a test comes along, or you're going to have a test, and you study all week long for this test that you're going to have, and you really were faithful in your study, you didn't cheat or anything like that, you didn't say you studied and you didn't, so you really felt good about the test. But when you got in the classroom and they handed out the test sheet, all of a sudden everything that you thought you knew went blank. You couldn't remember a thing. Or maybe you could remember part of it. But yet, when the test was over, and you're home and you're relaxed, and things are kind of back to normal, all of a sudden the answers to those questions you couldn't remember came to your mind. What do you suppose happened? We often hear and read that key performances and skills of the greatest golfers, I'm going to use golfers, invariably possess among all others is effective concentration. If you look at the leaders in the golf field, and I'm going to use Ben Hogan and Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods, are three of the top that I'm aware of, they were each different. They all had different swings. They had different strengths and weaknesses, but the look on their faces in the heat of battle suggested all three were basically identical in their ability to concentrate. The most common assumption is that it's all about focus, and the narrower the focus, the better. The more practice swings, the better. Looking at a putt from every different angle you could think of. Thinking about your timing, the grip, and all the little intricacies that are involved in hitting that ball in the cup. Many studies at Harvard University have shown that too much conscious attention to the task actually damages the ability to perform to their potential. And if you look in your Bible at Romans 7:19, Paul tells us, "For the good that I would do, I do not do. But the evil that I will not do, that's what I practice." Now, why would he say that? Have you ever asked yourself that question? Why do I do the things that I don't want to do, and the things that I want to do, I don't do? Could it be that we're focusing our attention on the wrong issue? Think about it. Think about it. These scholars that tell us that everything we do is based on prior knowledge and experience or practice, and the Bible supports that concept. Exodus 2:11, Moses was taught as a child, and when he was old, he remembered. Proverbs 22:6 says, raise up a child in the way they should go, and when they are old, they'll remember it. Narrow focus actually shuts down part of the brain that accesses your memory, which would impede the creativity and the ability to perform. So if you're focusing too hard, too much on an issue, it shuts down the part of your brain that you really need. What is called wide open thinking is recommended and useful when participating in sports. This is what the article is telling me now. So, I said to myself, why would it not work in our everyday walk with God? When we try so hard to do something or not to do something, and we find both are an impossibility, and the guilt feeling that causes us to despair. How many times have you said something that came out of your mouth and after you said it, you just felt so bad because you shouldn't have said it, but it came out anyway? I have to say that I'm guilty of that more than once, and I'm sure if I asked you to raise your hand, I'd see a bunch of them. Maybe, just maybe, our focus is too narrow, like the Pharisees. We are not coming to Jesus to look at the big picture. Maybe we're too busy worrying about picking up sticks on the Sabbath, or carrying a basket, or a blanket, or maybe giving Bible studies, or going door to door. Maybe that's a problem. Or maybe a position in the church, being up front, singing a song, being a preacher. And the list could go on and on and on. Our unconscious mind works deductively. In other words, if this, then that. Allowing it to do its own work gets us out of our own way. And that's when we have the best chance to perform to our potential. Dr. Marcus Rashley of Washington University says, when your brain is supposedly doing nothing, it is really doing a tremendous amount because of what we feed it. And I thought about that. What do I feed my brain? What do I watch? What do I read? What do I concentrate on? Do I spend time with God? Do I have my daily worship? Do I spend time on my knees with Him? The brain could bypass what we think we need and simply send a message that worked best. It might say, in the golfing world or in the sports world, just putt. Just take your little putter and put that ball in the hole. Just swing the club, rather than say, I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to try to swing. I got to remember my grip now, and I got to remember my foot stance, and I got to get my shoulder down. And we go through this in our mind, and what it's telling us is, just let it happen. Just do it. Not try to do it, just do it. Just throw it, just hit it, just kick it, just put it in the pocket. Jesus tells us in John 17, 20 and 21, just come. Just come. That we may be one together. Don't worry about all the peripheral stuff that kind of gets in the way sometimes. To use wide open thinking and not deep focus in our walk with God will help our brain to recall the victories that He has already given us, overcoming temptation. His promises will be remembered. But we cloud our brain so much with being perfect that we forget that still small voice that speaks so softly. Just like the golfer. When he sizes up a shot, he'll be able to recall every shot before that he's had experience, which can help him make the right decision. And you don't have to worry about all the little nitpicky things of his grip being just right, or his stance, or all the little things that are involved with it. In other words, you don't worry about all the peripheral stuff. I'm going to share a story with you that I heard a few years ago. It was about a pilot that was flying during the war in Vietnam. And he had gotten shot down, and they'd taken it as a prisoner in a camp somewhere out in the jungle of Vietnam. He was in isolation. He was the only one in this place where he was, probably just a bamboo shack somewhere. And every day, for I think it was a couple of years before they finally got him, rescued him, but every day he played golf in his mind. He played a particular course that was up near his hometown. And he played every shot, every fairway shot, every tee shot, every putt, every day for 18 holes. Every day he went through this routine in his mind. It kept him from going crazy, but it gave him something to do. When they finally rescued him and took him home, after he had recovered from his ordeal, some friends asked him to go golfing. He went out with them in this same golf course, and he shot a 72, which was par for the course. Now, I don't know how many of you are golfers, but this fellow hadn't golfed in over, I don't know how long. He'd been in prison for 2 years. We knew that. But in his mind, he had played that course over and over and over again every day. To me, that kind of brought all this together, to home. That's wide open thinking. He had everything in his mind. He knew what he had to do. He didn't go out on that golf course and start worrying about, well, I haven't played golf in umpteen years, and I don't even know if I can even hit the ball now. He knew in his mind. He had done it. Your mind is a powerful, powerful, powerful tool. And what you feed it has a tremendous effect on your life. I have to tell you a personal experience of my own. Maybe I've shared this with you before, and if I have, forgive me, but I walked away from the Lord for 33 years. During that time in my life, there's not much that I haven't done, let me say that. I'm not proud of it. But after I got out of the military, I went back to my hometown, and my parents were still there. I got married, had a family, got a job up in San Jose, and it was a decent job. And they had a league in the company, a bowling league. I'd never bowled before in my life. So this fella asked me if I'd bowl on his team. There was him and I and a lady. There was 3 of us on the team. I told him, I said, I don't know how to bowl. I don't know what a bowling ball even looks like. Well, he gave me one of his old ones. bored some holes in it that fit my hand, gave me a pair of shoes and a bag, and said, come on, I'll show you how to bowl. Well, he took me down the bowling alley for 30 minutes or so and said, okay, you're on your own now. Well, we bowled in that league that year, that summer league. And lo and behold, we won the league championship. He was a good bowler, though. He was really good. But I was beginning to kind of get a little enthused about it myself. And so after I left that company and went other places, I still kept bowling. And as time went by, my average kept coming up. And I thought, maybe I'll join some of these amateur tournaments that they have here in town. Well, I got a rude awakening real quick. But it troubled me why I couldn't bowl like those guys were bowling. So I started going to the bowling alley and started practicing. I'm worried about my footwork and how my arms swing and the grip of the ball and all this other stuff that you struggle with. And it's a good thing when you're practicing, you got to learn the techniques, but after that, you got to forget them. You got to let that muscle memory that's connected with your brain to do its job. Pretty soon I became pretty good. But what made me focus, what made me change, what made me have this wide open thinking that I read about was that I finally come to the conclusion, rather than worrying about my footwork and the speed of the ball or anything else, just put the ball in the 1-3 pocket. Don't worry about nothing else. Everything else will take care of itself. Just put the ball in the 1-3 pocket. Well, now the ball is from here to the end of the church. So that's a long way for that ball to roll before it hits the pocket. But that's the key. I didn't worry about all the footwork and all the other little things that I had to practice in the beginning. I just rolled the ball towards that pocket. Once I got to the point where I could hit that pocket 8 out of 10 times, my score started going through the roof. So I bowled in more and more tournaments, started winning a little bit of money. And one Sabbath, I was in San Francisco and there was a tournament going on, and I entered into the tournament. And 3 of us were bowling. There was 4 of us on 2 lanes, and there's a whole alleys full of people doing the same thing. And we started bowling. And the first ball I threw was a strike. So did the other guys. The second ball I threw was a strike, and so were the other guys. So there's 4 of us now have hit the pocket every time we bowled for the first 4 frames. People are starting to look now. There's all X's up there. Well, about the 5th frame, a couple of guys dropped out. I kept rolling the ball into the pocket. I ended up bowling a perfect game. Not because I was worrying about all the intricacies of how I got there and what I was doing. I was just rolling the ball into that pocket. That's all I was focusing on. I wasn't focusing on the details. And Jesus tells us in Revelation 3:20 and 22, I stand at the door and knock. He who opens the door to me, I will come and sup with him. He's telling us that today, brothers and sisters. He's telling us just to come. Don't worry about anything else. If that still small voice prompts you to come, don't worry about whether you've been a good person or a bad person. Come. That's all he's asking. He'll do all the other stuff that needs to be done. All that peripheral stuff. The going door to door and the nervousness you feel when you have to ask to pray out loud or maybe sing a song and you feel like you can't do that, so you're going to hide in a corner and in the pew somewhere. You don't want people to look at you. Don't worry about that kind of stuff. Just focus on him. Just look to him. Don't get hung up on how you come. Just come. Don't worry about your mistakes. Don't try to read the greens in a golfing sense. Don't worry about the timing. Don't worry about your backswing. Quit trying to catch fish. He'll teach you how to catch fish and more. In Matthew 4:18 through 22, he calls some disciples to come to him. What did he say? Come, follow me. Did he ask them if they'd read the prophecies? And they knew about Daniel and Revelation? I don't think so. All he said was come. Just come. And we know the results of that. We know what happened. The whole world was changed. Hebrews 12:2 tells us to look to Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith. And maybe you think you may have some problems, that you're not worthy. In Isaiah 44:28, the prophet says, from the Word of God, who says to Cyrus, he is my shepherd. You see, Jesus took a ruler from a foreign country and made him one of his disciples, and Cyrus didn't even know it. He found out about it later, and he was a very humble man because of it. You see, Jesus is not a respecter of persons. He don't care how young you are, how old you are. I'm an example of that. I'm 87 years old. And I look to people in the hospital that are a lot younger than I am, and I'm praising God for what He's done in my life. But I've asked Him many times, are you through yet? Can I take a break? Can I have a breath of fresh air? And He says, I'm your breath. I don't care how old you are, Donald. If I want you, I'll tell you what to do. My friends, He offers you the same thing. When you come to Him, I don't care how small you are, you young people listening, when you come to Jesus, He'll give you everything you need to accomplish the task that He has for you. All you have to do is just do it. One of the greatest preachers this world has ever known, I have a little article that was written about him. I'd like to share it with you. It's from a text in Isaiah 45:22. It says, look unto me, and be ye saved, all the ends of the earth. For I am God, and there is none else. That's Isaiah 45:22. Charles Spurgeon calls this the promise of promises. He says that it lies at the very foundation of our spiritual life. Salvation comes through a look of faith unto Him who is a just God and a Savior. There was a heavy snowstorm, and Spurgeon was seeking refuge in a little Methodist chapel on an obscure street. He wanted salvation, but did not know how to find it. There was no minister present that day, but a layperson came up to the pulpit and read his Bible. and read these words, "Look unto me and be ye saved." Fixing his eyes on Spurgeon as though he knew him personally, he said, "Young man, you're in trouble. You will never get out of it unless you look to Christ." Then he lifted his hands and he cried, "Look, look, look. It is only a look." That young man, Spurgeon, later became one of the world's greatest preachers, and he said, "I saw at once the way of salvation. I looked. I had been waiting to do the 50 things to earn salvation, but when I heard that word, look, I saw at once the way of salvation." You see, he was focused on all the little intricacies to be a good person and be a good Christian, and then I can be a good preacher. I never graduated from high school. And when I did go to school, I flunked just about every one of my classes. I'm not telling you that to call any attention to myself. I'm calling you that because God does not care about you other than the fact that you look to him. When you do, there's nothing impossible with God. You can do anything that he directs you to do, not on your own understanding, but on his understanding. You see, I was working up here in Oakhurst as a handyman, and I got a phone call to go and preach in Yosemite Valley one summer. I'm not a preacher, Lord. What are you calling me for? So you see, he don't care who you are or where you're at. When he calls you, all he asks you to do is look to him. Look to him. In a look, there is life for thee. In the look at Calvary, blessed thought, salvation free, by a look at Calvary. Psalms 48 says, "I delight to do your will, O my God. Your law is within my heart." And we just read in John 17 what his will is for us, didn't we? That we would be one with him as he was one with his Father. To be in harmony with him. My prayer today is that you have heard God speaking in your life. And you have a choice to make, whether you answer him with a yes or with a no. My brother prayed this morning that his spirit would be here in this sanctuary. And if his spirit is here, which I believe it is, then he's been talking to somebody here today. He's been speaking to somebody's heart. My prayer is that you would listen to that still small voice. And that your answer to him would be the same as what Isaiah's was when he looked and he saw God sitting on a throne, high and lifted up. And God said, "Who shall I send?" Isaiah said, "Here am I. Send me."